Welcome to another episode of Daddy Confessions. I'm your boy John, and today we are going to talk with two friends from college. Man, I got my Trinity shirt on today, repping Trinity. This shirt actually has been around since I was at Trinity. I'm pretty sure I don't know, this might be from freshman year, which I don't know if that says good things or bad things.
Vintage,
But
vintage.
today, I got my boy Carlos is back. He's going to chat with us a little bit, and we got someone new today, Javier Sanchez. Javier, can you introduce yourself to the people?
Yes, sir. Javier Sanchez, as John mentioned, went to college together at Trinity. Currently, father of two, happily married. Live up in Connecticut. Graduated as an economics major at Trinity, and currently in a sales role in my current role. So that's me in a nutshell.
Now, you say currently, you planning on having some more kids?
Nah. we're good.
Current,
we
future,
talked about
and
it.
Forever, right?
We talked about it, but we decided on two. We thought
Okay.
that was good.
We decided on two, or
No, it was a we. It was a
okay. I had to ask because I made the mistake. I actually had. So I was telling a parent who was visiting my school the other day. I said, "Yeah, I made the mistake of asking my wife right after she gave birth to our second kid whether she wanted to have a third." And the woman looked at me like she was ready to beat me up. I was like, "Yeah, that was my mistake. My wife wanted nothing to do with the third child." So, and we good, two. I'm good now. I wouldn't change that for the world. I don't know what happened if I already got gray hair here and there. If I had a third, there's a big gray. I might be in a wheelchair somewhere. So here we go.
Yeah, I mean, we had those conversations, but it was, all the financial considerations, all the, everything. And the other thing, it might sound silly, right? But like, even like vacation packages, man, they don't have a five-person
Right?
vacation package.
No,
Everything's
Carlos
knows.
That is a good point, man.
I know.
When you put that fifth
Carlos
kid
knows.
in the mix, you gotta figure out something else. You like, well,
Yep.
you
Like,
paying
wait, I
full
gotta
price
add
again.
on.
You paying full price again, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Carlos knows.
I do.
Yeah, man. So
Let me introduce myself then.
yes, Carlos, go ahead, introduce yourself to the people, please.
Yeah, Carlos Resto. I went to college, obviously, with John. I was actually roommates with Javier at Trinity College in Hartford. I study psychology, and currently I work in state government in human health services up here in Massachusetts. That's what I've been doing for the last 15 years.
So these guys, I know, right?
And I'm a proud father of boy-girl twins. We're 6 and a little 4-year-old boy who's a hurricane. So yeah. And if it was up to my wife, we would have about 6 or 7 kids right now. So
oh man, okay.
She loves kids.
Well, you can tell that she already win with 3.
Yeah.
3 is all you already winning with 3 because most people not going that far
3
these
2
days.
years. Yeah, she
so
started with twins right off the bat. So
yeah, you guys went back for that gamble for that second one, or for that, I guess the third.
Yeah, no,
one.
we did. But we're good.
Yeah, when Carlos told me he was having twins right off the bat, I was like, wow, you skipped minor leagues, man. You went right to the majors, like.
Well, and then it was boy girl, so I'm like, I'm set that we got one of each, and she's like, oh, we're not done. I'm like, oh, okay.
More to come. So tonight we want to talk a little bit about, it's been about 11 months now or something like that. I don't even know. It's been a year. It's been over a year now. It's been 13 months now, right? Wow. Since COVID started, we have been, most of us at home. Our kids have been at home. And I wanted to talk tonight a little bit about what it's been like being a father, parenting during COVID, and how that has affected you positively, negatively. What things have you seen, in your household that maybe would not have happened had we not been forced to spend so much time together over the past year. So so tell me, before COVID, what would you say was the average amount of time that you spent away from home? So like commute, at work, and then commute home. Like what was that? What did that look like for you guys prior to COVID?
For me, I mean, I can tell you it was pretty frantic. I mean, I was probably up by 5, 6. My wife's a nurse, so we had our whole morning routine that we had to get done, get ready. I had to get into the office, get the kids ready for school. And at that point, my youngest, Julian, um, he was still in daycare. So it was two different processes for my older, right? Get him ready for school, get him on the school bus, kind of wait until he gets on the bus. And I had to, head to the daycare, drop my youngest off, then head into the office. So I was probably getting into the office around like 9:30. And then on an average day, work until 5:36, right? My wife and I would kind of text during the day and figure out like, hey, who's on first to pick up who and when. And usually she picked up our oldest, and I would go and pick up our youngest, Julian. And so that was probably around 6:30 we get home. By like 7 we're having dinner. Then it was like half an hour of relaxation time, and then bath time, and then bedtime, right? So by like 8:30 kids are in bed. So that was my routine, right? So you're talking, really, it's not how many hours I was away from home. It's like how many hours was I home in a course of a day. It was maybe like 3 to 4 hours in a given day, if that. So it was hectic.
Yeah,
Definitely hectic.
what about you, Carlos?
So for me, I was up at 5:30. I was outside. I would probably leave. I start early at work, so I was usually in the office by 7:30. So I literally left at 6:30 and came home at 6 o'clock. I have close to an hour commute.
Wow.
And then coming home, it was it was hectic. It was doing getting dinner prepared, getting the kids showered, and bathed, having dinner, and yeah, for me, it's only like 2.5 hours with them, and then because they would wake up, I was already gone. I had the very lucky that my wife is able to runs her own business from home, so she kind of would handle everything in regards to getting them prepped for school and stuff like that. But mine was just getting early to the office. It's just the nature of my job.
Yeah, and that was similar for me as well. It was interesting though because I work in schools, and in recent years, so my oldest, who's now 7, so Trey is 7, and he has been going to school with me for a couple of years now. So he and I travel together, but he had to get up really early, get in the car, and it took us about 45 minutes to get to work and to school in the morning. I don't even remember what time we were getting up at that. I mean, we were probably getting up at like 6 o'clock. And my wife is a nurse as well, and she worked at the time. She was working uh, four 412s, I think.
Ooh.
So she was working from 11 to 11, if I remember correctly. And so she was able to get our youngest to daycare, but I had to, you know, pick him up. We had to, it was a whole thing, and but we were, in the car for an hour and a half total each day, and my schedule was a little bit shorter because it coincided with the school day a little bit more. But there were times when I had to work late into the evening. There were times when, I had to drop the boys off at my mother's house and go back to school for meetings at school at night. And now, which kind of leads me to the next piece of it, is actually in some ways gotten worse. Um, so what I've experienced now is that work hours don't matter. So there's always something to do. There's meetings into the evening. I think there were a lot more meetings created because people were not face to face. Although I've been at work, so I go to my office every day, but because we're not meeting and people weren't able to just like swing by somebody's office and get things done, there were all these additional meetings that kind of were put on the books. And so sometimes that meant that I was working more into the evenings than I had ever been before. And I started a new job in July last year, so right when the pandemic started. So new job, new responsibilities, everything was kind of moving in a different direction. But tell me, how things been for you guys in terms of working from home? You guys are both working from home now, correct?
Yep.
So how has that been for you working from home?
For me, I mean, working from home. So the bulk of my career, I've been in sales. So I've always had some sort of mobile aspect to my job, right? Like I've always had a little bit of freedom to kind of work from home and work mobilely and travel and things of that nature. I think what the pandemic caused me to do is to kind of hit pause, right? Is like, yeah, I'm working from home, but I'm only working from home. And I had the other layers of, right, we decided to keep our kids work the distance learn, right? And so essentially from the very beginning, so it became more than just kind of balancing my schedule. And so, John, to your point, I think there was some of that where there's a little bit of added meetings that maybe you wouldn't normally see in a normal environment, right? And I think I kind of tip my hat to the leadership we have, who kind of they quickly understood. Look, this is we don't have the rules, we don't have the playbook for this, so they've been really flexible and like, look, whatever time you need to kind of figure things out, take it. And but we trust that you guys are kind of getting what you need to get done from there. So from a job perspective, it hasn't been at least from the job demand perspective, it hasn't been as stressful. But I would say the biggest challenge for me has been balancing the hectic schedule that I have during the course of a day and managing the school calendar of my children, right? And I've got one child who's in third grade, one child who's first year kindergarten, right? Like just moved there from preschool, getting used to, like, I was help desk, I was, math tutor, English tutor, like I was everything for like the first couple of months. And so that to me was the most demanding time. And I will say, and I tell my wife this all the time, is the thing I miss most about the commute. So for the most part, I don't miss it, right? I've it's been um it's been invaluable time, but the biggest thing I miss is that 15 minutes of driving from my job to home or wherever, right? That 15 minutes of silence in the car by myself, just it allowed me to reset and be like my whole self, for like be dad Hav and be corporate Hav and be I don't get that segmentation time anymore, right? Like now it's like, oh, I just gotta shift, right?
Yeah,
And
it's like that episode I did about being alone, finding time to be alone, right? Now
right,
you don't,
exactly.
you lose
Exactly.
that, right? Because you are there with them all the time.
Yep.
And I get that it's tough, like the whole idea of and so your wife is at work. Is she at work during this time? So she's
Yeah.
she's a nurse, so it didn't stop for her, right? So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so now you trying to manage your schedule and their schedule, and I found that to be probably the most hectic part for me as well on those days when we, the times when we were virtual. Um, and so Carlos, what about you? How has that been for you? I know your wife has been there with the kids as well, so both of you guys are at home, so you get
So,
it.
so yeah, I got the privilege that I have a wife. Like I said, she runs her own business from home, and that's what she's always done. For me, I had a job, where we had to go into the office, and we had never at any point in the history ever had to work from home or had the ability to work from home. So for me, uh, I was enjoying not having to wake up at 5:30 because I didn't need to do that 45-minute commute. But at the same time, I was finding myself like logging in and getting to work right at 7 a.m. where before it was, closer to 8 a.m. in the office, and then staying on till 7 o'clock at night, just because it was convenient for me. I would be engaged doing my work, and time would go by, and I would go up and luckily I'm separated down in the basement and isolated. I could hear the chaos a little bit upstairs. My wife is a superhero and can, she's 10 times, more patient than I could ever be. But, I could, for lunch, go right upstairs, hug my kids, kiss my wife. Never had that opportunity before. So, um, I kind of enjoyed it, and it's been up and down. Biggest thing for me was, you know, walking away from work because uh, work was always in the office, and I was able to, as soon as I walked throughout the office doors, I was done. But now, access to be reached by email or on the work cell, by text or whatever, by by my staff. Sometimes my days are extra long, and my wife is the one who had to be like, yo, you gotta step off and
Shut
step
it
away.
down.
And I'm like,
Right, cut that out.
yeah.
Right,
And
right.
I'm like, oh, it's just an email, it's just a text, or it'll be a quick call. So she had to kind of slow me down. If not, I was literally 12 hours easy,
Wow.
and I wouldn't even feel it. But could
So
be
I think
my
that's
kind of personality.
I think that's interesting. So, we got three different, types of situations that we are dealing with here during COVID, right? So I've been going into the office and I'm here with my boys sometimes, but it's always just us because my wife, you know, is a nurse, so she's at the hospital, she's working, she's got to be out of the house. And Javi's been at home with the kids while his wife is away, and
Salute to him, man.
and
I
and
can't do that.
Carlos, you've been
God
able
bless
to
you.
kind of had that kind of mixed bag, right? Where you've been able to separate yourself to do the work, but also be able to spend time with the kids when you can, during the workday. And so that's very interesting. I can tell you, one of the hardest things for me is right here next to me. Most days when we were at home, I would have my 3-year-old, now 4-year-old, at my hip on his tablet trying to do his preschool class. And it never failed that the times when they would have their little sessions, it matched up with when I had meetings scheduled. So he's on here, like sitting right next to me with his little tablet, and he's like doing the little songs for his class and, whatever, like the little welcome song or whatever. And I'm sitting here trying to have a meeting. And it was crazy. That was always the hardest part. And then at the beginning of the year, my first grader was trying to figure out the technology piece, trying to, and not to get frustrated when he wasn't getting called on online, and he's getting upset, and I'm like dipping out of meetings to go check on him to make sure he's not too upset, because he's not getting called on when he has the answers. And I told him, I was like, you're not the only person in the class, kid. They can't, I know it looks that way when you're on the computer or whatever, but they can't call on you for everything. So, so we had those moments, but my favorite moments, and I'll ask you guys this as well. My favorite moments were, and are, the times when we just get to, kind of sit down and have lunch together, or when we are, uh, when we can, our day ends early and we are just here. We don't have to like get up and get in the car, or we don't have to rush out of the house in the morning to try to get to school on time, kind of thing. So those are the times that have been great during this pandemic. And I wanted to ask you all the same thing. Like, what are those moments that, when you think back on them over the past 13 months, have been the upside of this pandemic?
Carlos, you want to tackle that first, and I'll follow up.
I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. Easily for me, the ups of this whole time working from home is what I mentioned. The ability for me, right, even in between meetings, I would finish a meeting and I knew I had a half-hour gap, going right upstairs, hugging, kissing my wife, having breakfast with my kids, making lunch for them, kind of see the in between sometimes. So my wife at one point decided we weren't going to do the distance learning because we had 3 kids uh, getting checked into 3 different classrooms at different times, and we thought it would be too much. So my wife was like, I'm going to homeschool them. She's a former educator. And I said, that's a lot. She's like, I'm going to do it. And she did. So we almost, once again, I had the privilege that as she's doing the homeschool lessons, that there would be breaks in between that I can go up there and spend time with her and give her a little bit of a break. So that has been the most funnest. I recall in the summers it was what I call Resto Baseball Academy, and I would have all the baseball equipment out there in the yard, and we would do that during lunch. And in the fall, it was just playing out in the yard during my lunch breaks with them. So that's always been the highlight, being able to, in a matter of 13 steps up the basement stairs, and I was in a whole different world now. I was back home and with my family. So that's what I enjoyed the best.
Yeah, and I think for me, pretty similar, right? I mean, I think so. I've always been, kind of somewhat of a workaholic, right? And so I've always kind of, you know, been like the hours go by, and it's like my wife would call me and be like, "Hey, are you on your way home?" And it's like, "Yep." As soon as I get that call, I'm like, "Time to shut it down." Um, but like I said earlier, right? I think this pandemic really forced me to kind of slow down. And I think I even had this conversation with Carlos on a sidebar, well in advance. It was one of these things where everything was kind of hectic, right? Balancing everything. But then at one point I kind of stepped back, and I'll tell you the exact story. Um, so it was one day I had some meetings get canceled, and the boys had like a half a day. And so what I did is like right at 11 was like my last meeting. So I got them in the car. We went and picked up like, I think it was Subway or what have you. And we went to a park that has like a lake right near here, near where we live. And we sat there for, an hour, had lunch. They got to feed the ducks. They got to play outside. And then, we got back in the car and got home. But stuff like that, like, those are things I would never get to experience while I'm working in the office, right? And so same thing, similar to Carlos, is when they have recess, we'll go out and throw the football around, or we'll go for a walk around the block, and we'll have conversations. So I feel like this pandemic has really allowed me to bond with my kids more, and I feel that even more with my youngest, because my oldest, I feel like we had that bond from early on, and then the youngest was always like closer to his mom.
Right.
And I was working so much, like he would see me again for like that hour or two a day. So this really gave an opportunity where I feel like both my kids are that much closer to me, which means, like I said, is completely invaluable and priceless to me, right? And it makes you kind of think about what that all means and the importance
Right.
of silver
That's,
lining.
that's right. You're right. I mean, I hear that, and it's been, I do find myself just feeling like I'm probably catching more of their life um, than than I would have otherwise. Um, and it's interesting because you don't realize how much of their life that you don't know
Mm-hmm.
until you are
Yep.
there with it all the time, right? So
Hmm.
it's a very interesting kind of situation where uh you can watch how they interact with each other more, right, than the couple of hours that you usually get watching them interact, you can see that the things that they're learning kind of in the moment, as opposed to like catching it later on or finding out that they are able to do something, you know, that they didn't get a chance to tell you during that 2 hour block at night, right? um and it's great. It's been, I tell people all the time, like, you know, in a lot of ways, this pandemic was a blessing in disguise,
Yeah,
because
agreed.
it forced everybody to slow down. It forced everybody to take stock on what matters most. And for me, you know, it's always been, and I've always told everybody, it's my family. Like, always has mattered more than anything to me. And watching them kind of go through this, and you know, us have to go through it together, has been, uh it's been sad, it's been exciting, it's had like all the kind of emotions mixed in it together, right? I don't know if you guys have had any, you know, quote unquote horror stories as it relates to like the last, you know, 13 months in COVID, like with the kids. Have there been any like situations that were like just came out of nowhere? Like, you know, you remember that video where that guy was on the news? He was like reporting from his house on the news, and his kids came
Oh yeah.
busting into the room behind him. Have you guys had any situations like that, or anything?
John, too many to share them all, bro. Like honestly, it's been like, I'll tell you, there's one thing I've learned not to sweat the little stuff, man. Like it's just been that type of year. But yeah, I mean everything from breaking up fights between the brothers, because I actually set up, like I built my kids like personal cubicles, right? Like they have like cubicles with a little partition wall, but like I'll be working, they'll be working, all of a sudden I'll hear like stop, blah blah blah, and they're like fighting. So I gotta break that up, right? And sometimes I've got to do it with like the like snapping the
Right.
finger and doing something like to get in the that I've learned that my kids can be slick, right? Like they really try to work the system. Like kids are smart, man. And so when they know I'm, you know, they almost um looked forward to me be having a full day of meetings because they were like, yes, we're gonna sneak onto YouTube. We're gonna watch some YouTube videos, and I'm like sitting there like I'm watching you. Like you gotta get off the YouTube, but I can't. You know, I'm in meetings. But I think the funniest thing, man, is my youngest. So my oldest, he's already gotten used to. You know, Daddy does a lot of kind of mobile, virtual type stuff, so he gets it. My oldest, I'm like, you know, hey, I'm gonna be on a call for an hour. Like, you know, you can't bother Daddy for that hour. He's like, all right, you know. My youngest, I could say that till I'm blue in the face. And the minute I get on that call, he's like, Daddy, Daddy. He wants something. He wants a snack. He wants a toy. He wants to play, whatever. And then he'll walk over and he won't take like no. And I'll be like, hey, hold on. Like I'll put my finger up.
Oh
Nope.
my gosh.
He
Yeah.
just say, dude, I've literally had, so I've been on video conferences like this for work. And all you see is like his little head, like right in this space right here. Like I've literally had to, luckily it's only been with, it hasn't been with external clients, it's been with like internal teams. So I literally was just like, and this is my son. Like I just introduced them,
Right.
and they, you know, luckily the team was great. And I think, you know, I think the one silver lining in all of that is like everyone has experienced some level of that if they've got kids and they're managing their career from home. So I think there's a little bit more of a patience and an understanding for something like that now,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, so I've had nothing but those types of stories, John. So yeah.
I I remember asking Javi right at the beginning when we were still distance learning what he was doing. I noticed he did the cubicles and I was trying to get pointers. We ended up changing our family room, made it our school room, and had all three. I helped my office with, you know, 84 individuals, and a lot of it is always like, you know, being on top of agendas and coming up with it and delivering these meetings with important information in the middle of a pandemic, especially in health and human services. So my little man is it was the end of me when it came to that, because he had no filter. He would come in, he want to get in the shot. Um, he wanted to talk, he wanted to grab my headphones and want to hear what people were saying. I'm like, so that they became very familiar with the little guy. The twins, luckily, they're together and they kind of entertain themselves, but the little guy's always kind of left out a little bit. He was only, well, he was 3 at the time when we started uh the working from home, and he had never been to school. We just were hoping to get him a preschool. So at least with the twins, they had an idea of having lesson, and you're gonna do your lessons, and this is what you do. He had no interest. He's like, my toys are over there. I'm not gonna sit over here and stay quiet. I'm gonna go play. I'm gonna go see dad downstairs. Why can't I be down there? So it was at times frustrating, but now looking back, I just laugh at it. These are like memories that we're gonna think back years from now, and understand that, I was able to see that little little guy get try to get underneath my skin. I totally what Javi is saying in regards to, they're slick about it. They know exactly when dad's busy, when mom's busy, and we're gonna sneak in and go grab some extra snacks and stuff like that. We have a pantry down here, so I would hear that door open. I'm like, uh-oh, they're trying to sneak in and get some snacks. Um, but yeah, that was it. I've always rolled with the punches. Nothing really gets me going too much with that. I was the oldest of 4 boys, so my little brothers are always getting into issues here and there. So it was just kind of managing it and laughing it off, and luckily the audience that I was presenting to got entertainment out of it in their own lives, especially if they were isolated. And just to see this little 3-4-year-old just like really messing up my vibe here. I'm talking all nice and smooth, getting all my points, and all of a sudden he's like popping in. It just setting me off the loop. But we're dads, and that's, you got to love your kids for that, and the interest they get. At least they're always interested in what daddy was doing.
Right.
They weren't used to me talking talking in that way, like,
Right.
there's a certain way we talk when we're at work, and
right.
a certain way when we talk at home. So
that's right.
they're interested in that, and it's like, dad needs to talk to some people.
The line that cracks me up is my youngest, right? So I'll be in a meeting, and it's like this virtual, and he'll be like it'll finish, and he'll be like upset, crying in the corner, and I'm like, baby, what's wrong? Like, what happened? He's like, you're just ignoring me, like you don't even care. And I'm like, God, I could not. Like, daddy's in the meeting, I told you. He's like, you don't care, you just ignore me. I'm like, so then I got to spend like the next like half hour trying to like calm him down and get him like set for his next thing. And it was, dude, it's just funny. To Carlos's point, right? I just learned to laugh. I learned to laugh at myself, the situation, the kids. Otherwise, you'll lose it.
Yeah.
That's not to say I've had my moments where it's just been like everything hits, DEFCON 5, and you're
right.
like, man, I can't take one more thing. I'm gonna snap. But yeah, but overall, it's been a fantastic experience. Like, to your point, it's the unexpected kind of silver lining, right? No one kind of went into this pandemic saying it could be a blessing in a certain way, but it has been. So
I tell you, one of the things that gets me every time is, so my little one, we still working on it, on him wiping his own butt, right? He goes poop at the most inopportune time. It's like, man, for real? Like, where are you putting it? Like, he's the smallest thing. The boy is like 30 pounds soaking wet at 4 years old. I'm like, wait, you're not getting no weight. You're not putting on no weight. And he goes to the bathroom regularly, but it never, when I say regularly, like, it will be regular, but it's not at a regular time. It's always at the wrong time. Right in the middle of a meeting, right when I'm about to say something, all of a sudden my oldest son comes down, he sneaks down here all quiet, and he's like, Wyatt went poop. Like, he mouths it, he just mouths it to me. I'm like, okay. I'll be there in a little. Like I had to mute myself. I'll be there in a minute, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like right in the middle of this meeting. It's getting, right to a point or something like that. But that's always. It never fails. It never fails. That's. I don't look forward to that, but I kind of look forward to that whenever I'm home. We're working from home. That's gonna happen for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. But they're always fighting, so I always expect that. So that piece never, all I have to mute myself, go off camera a little bit, and say, "Can y'all quiet down? Like, give me a moment." Like,
I mastered putting my hands in front of my mouth.
Oh, I should try that. I never thought about that.
Yeah,
It's like
just put myself on mute and just go off. Go off. Because my boys, they fight, wrestle from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed. They need to be physically doing something to each other.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
No,
I mastered that out.
On my work computer, I got the little slider on the camera. I'll just black out and like go on mute for a second, and go handle whatever I gotta handle, and come back and be like, "Sorry, everyone, had a little bit of an issue I had to take care of real quick." I mean, it's just
it is what it is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta expect those things. Because they don't care. I mean, it's the same thing when you're on the phone or whatever. Like they got their own timeline for everything, right?
Yeah.
So I know Javier, I think you mentioned it, about those moments where his DEFCON 5, right? Like we get a little frustrated, you know what I'm saying? Everything happens at one time, it all comes together, perfect storm. Like, what would you say has been the way that you've tried to deal with it in the most productive manner, right? Like I know we all had those moments where you end up yelling, you end up regretting it. Like, what are those moments where you've kind of found yourself trying to figure out a different way to handle those moments?
Yeah, I mean, so I think one thing I've learned as a dad is when you do have those moments, they're inevitable, right? And you try to kind of think on them and kind of, all right, I don't want to do that again, right? Or there's a better way to approach that. So you kind of try to keep working on it. I think what has helped me kind of channel that, two things. One is, I think early on, right, like my wife kind of quickly understood, like, oh wait, like the game done changed for him a little bit, right? Like she understood, like, oh wait, I'm going to work and he's in the grind, not just with the kids, but at work too. And so I think we grew as a couple, as a working couple, where there's times where I'll be frustrated and I'll text her and she's like, just breathe, don't even sweat it. And then she was like, hey, if you don't get to his homework assignment today or his assignment, I'll do it when I get home. Right. So we learned how to kind of manage or share the work in certain instances. And so that helped really kind of bring down my stress level at any given time. I think the other piece of it that helped me is just kind of working out. I mean, to be quite frank, like I've been, I get up in the morning or I work up where I kind of built a makeshift gym here, like a couple weights and so forth during the pandemic, but just kind of getting that out and working out in the morning or in the evening, it just helped kind of relieve whatever stress I might have had from the day before you start piling on a whole new,
right,
level of stress. So I think those were the two channels. And then I think it's as a dad, right, is understanding that pride can be your curse, right? And so not telling your kids like you were wrong because I said you were wrong. It's like, taking the time to go back and say like, look, and from especially with my oldest, like I've taken the time to say like, look, sorry, I kind of snapped at you, but like you got to understand, like daddy has work to do, or we got to work together, right? And so it's not always easy to channel it that way, but
right.
I think continuously having the conversation with them after the fact helped, right? Which which is funny, right? Because the way I grew up, you weren't having them conversations.
Right.
It was like,
you do what I say.
exactly. It was like, listen, you do what I said because I said so. But helping them trying to understand, like, look, we're trying to work as a team here, and like having you guys like mutiny on a bounty, man. I can't roll like this.
And be
And so it's like,
WWE upstairs, in the
right,
other room.
yes.
You know what I'm saying?
right.
Like,
It's that fine line between like, respect, but also like, look, I'm not trying to be a dictator in certain instances, but if you want me to go there,
I could go there. I could
right.
go there.
but I'm giving you an option, right? Which is more than I got when I was little.
Right. Like I would prefer not to hawk out on you.
Right.
But
you don't like me when I'm angry.
Right. Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting you say that because I'm always looking for other ways to think about how to handle those stressful moments. I mean, they happen. We know they happen, right? And so I have taken to trying not to yell. It's hard. Sometimes it happens. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I'm like, guys, I need you to do this. And then 5 minutes later, I need you to do this. So y'all are not actually going to listen to me until I have to raise my voice. Is that what I'm hearing here? Like, if that was going, because I know I said it as nicely as I possibly could at least 2 other times. So I will raise my voice if I have to, but again, you won't like me when I'm angry.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? And so I think about those moments, and I think about the end result of those moments typically is trying to explain to them why I got upset, why I got to that point of being upset, and no, that's not the way that you should always react to things, but it's important for you to know that when I ask you to do something, or when I ask you not to do something, or if there's a moment when you are constantly asking me for something and I have to do like 4 other things for someone else, then I might not be able to get to your thing immediately. And so trying to get them to understand that. Now, I will tell you this, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but when I've talked to my therapist, he actually told me, he's like, don't spend too much time trying to explain things to the kids because they are not going to fully understand all that you are dealing with. No matter how much time you spend trying to explain it to them, like they're never going to fully understand what you are dealing with, right? And nor should they. Like, they little kids, like they mind should be on Minecraft or Pokemon, or what can they get some juice? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing. That's the things they should be worried about. So, and I thought that was interesting, and I still try to I try to break it down to them in the lowest common denominator, right? Like, give them the basics of it, but spending a lot of time trying to explain it to them, nope, not doing that no more. So,
oh yeah, I also get into the business of, I'll explain, but I don't get into the business of like you trying to justify and negotiate your point like back to me, like, well, but Dad, you should. No. Like we
ain't doing that, right?
We're not having a discourse here.
Right.
I'm just telling you, like, here's why it got to that point. But yeah, crazy.
My kids learn how to negotiate. So you talking about like, what I learned to do is really from my wife, because I was trying to explain stuff, and she was like, they don't need to know that, because they'll try to negotiate every time. Like, what am I going to get out of it if I do stay quiet, if I do what you want to do? So it's funny, my job, I'm super patient at work. I help manage social workers and do a lot of crisis management, and you got to de-escalate situations and be really calm. But I'm the opposite at home. Like I have no patience at all. And I can go from 0 to 100. And my wife is always the one calling me out. And I've learned, she's like, don't react that way, because that just feeds them and saying, well, oh, we got a reaction at dad. Then, they're trying to be slick and know if I'm going a certain way, that things can go a little chaotic, and then they get to do stuff, because I'm always then feeling bad, and then I'm like trying to give way more after to make up for my mistake. So in the past year, like when it comes to reacting that way, I've learned from my wife, and it actually made us closer, because sometimes I would come from home from work and see certain things and just go automatic. And why isn't this? Why is this? Why is that? Why can't they do this? And while I've been here, I've been hearing her, how she speaks to them and how she needs to negotiate with them. I'm telling you, my twins, if they're not lawyers, they're going to be in business, because they want to negotiate everything, and they work with each other and trying to get whatever they're trying to get. And the little guy, I call him the little dictator. He doesn't think there's any rules that apply to him. And even though I'm like, don't touch that, I could be looking at him and be like, don't touch it. And he's like, I'm touching it. What are you going to do? Like, it drives me nuts. Me nuts, but
that's how you know times have changed, brother. Because
I know.
That's true.
I know.
That's true.
So my wife has a different approach. She was raised differently. I got raised like I did it once, and I learned really quick not to do it again. While for hers, like, let's talk it out, negotiate. Now they negotiate everything. While I'm like, there's no negotiations. Like, you got to do what I'm telling you to do. It's like, but why? It's like, what? You're 6 years old. That's
Right.
why.
It's because I said so.
Exactly.
I said
like,
so.
I don't need to explain myself.
Yeah, that's a. I
You
mean,
really do.
that's a. And that obviously, that clearly has not changed because of COVID. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's still the kids still gonna push the envelope. They still gonna try to figure out what they can get away with. And that's something that is they don't tell you that when you become a parent. Actually, I take that back. I was gonna say they don't tell you that when you become a parent. My mama did tell me that. She said, "You wait till you had kids and see what I had to deal with." She told me that. She did tell me that, and every day I think, I'm like, man, my mother was right. I'm sorry, mama. I'll say it again 1,000 times. I know I pushed the buttons. That's what they're supposed to do. They're trying to they're trying to learn the world around them. They're trying to figure out who they are in the world. And it's been interesting to watch, and I want to get you guys your feedback on this. How has their understanding of COVID, of the pandemic, like, grown and changed over the past year? I mean, I'll say this, like, I don't think I've ever, because I never sit down with the news on in front of them, because there's so much other stuff happening in the news that they just don't need to deal with, you know what I'm saying? But obviously COVID is affecting everybody, and the reason why they're not going to school, or the reason why they have to wear masks everywhere. And so what have those conversations been like with your kids?
One thing I've learned about my kids during this whole pandemic is, I think as parents, you think about your kids as being kind of like not helpless, but like so innocent, and like you need to be there as a parent for them at any given point to help them turn a corner or what have you. And I've learned that kids are really resilient, right? I mean, and my kids have shown me that from transitioning to virtual learning, and like they manage their own stuff on their own. But then I think their understanding of COVID, right? And granted, with that said, my wife's a nurse, right? So she she kind of brings some of the science behind it. Not that we're getting into like biology classes with the kids, but because they'll ask questions like and questions you don't anticipate, like from kids, right? Like they'll be like, can you die from it? And it's point blank, right? They're not sugarcoating any questions. It's, can you die from it, or how do you get it, things of that nature. So we've had to have those conversations. I think so. With that said, I think their understanding of it, they quickly kind of adapted to wearing the masks and why we have to do so, and why there was a period of time where mom and dad weren't letting them play with like the neighborhood kids, right? Because I think we had a little bit of at least I think early on we had a little bit more of a stricter policy with our kids than some of the other neighborhood parents did. And part of that is the way we kind of interpreted things, and the other is my wife's a nurse, right? And so she was seeing the front lines of this. So it wasn't a game to her, right? She wasn't willing to gamble. And if you know my wife, she ain't gambling with her kids ever. You know what I mean? And so those are her pride and joy. So I think they really adapted well to understanding that. I think the one thing I try to keep cognizant of is, right, it's almost like they've got this apprehension towards people now, and it's like, wait, I don't want to foster that, right? Like I want you to be open and welcoming to people. But they do get a little bit like tentative, like they'll give me or their mom a look and be like, oh, is it okay to like interact, right? And it's like I don't like that either, right? But that's something, at least right now, I'm willing to live with. And then once things get better, then I don't think they'll struggle to get back to normal, to playing with everybody and doing whatever. But that's probably the biggest challenge for me. But yeah, I think they've really understood it and adapted well to it. Which was refreshing for us.
Yeah. I'm right there with you on that. Like just trying to understand like how the kids are, they're trying to understand how to connect with other people, right? Or if they can. And so that's something that we've seen in our house as well. So for sure. What about you, Carlos?
So for me, once again, my wife is a superhero. She right at the beginning knew that she had to distract, because they were asking, why aren't we going to school? Why can't I be my friends? Why can't we go to the playground? And so what she did, she came up with activities nonstop throughout the day to keep them active. And approaching what was happening outside, they could see, that daddy was coming home with a mask, because at one point I was still working. And they would, listen, I guess a little bit of the news. But for us, she was really honest with them, just saying, there is an illness, there's a sickness out there. We don't know what it is. We got to protect ourselves. And they were able to quickly adapt to that. And part of that is modeling it for your child. So seeing dad always coming out with a mask anywhere, or when she went out, and they picked up on it. And luckily, I guess it's lucky for us. We always thought where we actually live, it's not really a neighborhood. We have one house to the left and another one to the right. Each of my neighbors have 6 acres. We got 3. It's very isolated, so they don't see kids. They only had themselves always to work and play with. So they didn't have so much of a transition of like, wow, I really miss my friends, because they kind of already played by themselves within each other. But that was the key thing, just keeping them active. So they wouldn't be thinking about, oh, I miss school. And then we went right into homeschooling, because my wife was, we were thinking about the whole being able to log in at the right time. And we still didn't know what COVID was, last September. So when she said, I'm going to homeschooling, and she took that opportunity, it just got them used to it, to the point now. and the hesitancy that Javi said is so true. My dad and my parents are double vaccinated. My dad actually came today, and he's still masked up, but they're still even hesitant to go hug him. And they're looking at me, and I'm like, you could hug abuelo, like it's fine. Yep. And we had to tell him the vaccine's going to allow you to hug people again, and you could talk to them again, and all this stuff, without a mask eventually. So So in that aspect, I think the kids, we think about, wow, that kind of sucks right now, but I think the kids are they're able to adapt really quickly compared to us adults. I think once they're able to see others, probably start interacting and seeing friends again, that they'll make that adjustment and act like nothing ever really happened, I think. Um, and I think we've learned more from them during this past year, because they've been able to, adapt so quickly to that, and adapt to, like, okay, we're staying home. Okay, I'm not going to see my friends. I'm not going to be able to go to playground. We were one of the last ones to ever go to playground. My wife is very, she's not into, obviously, like your wives are doing the nursing, and being in the front line, but she was fully aware that, hey, we don't know what this thing is, though. So she's been super careful, and still continues to be. She's a Leo, and I'm like, she's a lioness, and her cubs, nobody comes near them. So, um, but once again, I think the kids are so easily able to adapt to things better than adults do. And I think for us, the best thing was to be honest with them and explain it to them, and they ask their questions, and we answer them the best we can. And they were like, okay,
Yep.
we'll be fine, kind of. And also, it was great to have three kids. Two of them always playing, the other one could be napping or doing something else, and but they always had somebody to keep them entertained or drive them nuts, because they'll
Right.
be fighting or something. So,
But I tell
yeah.
you, one of the great things is, as a father, I realized early on that, I have these little people who trust me, who believe me and believe that I'm doing the right thing for them. And so that part of it is easy, right? They don't question that I'm trying to do the right thing for them, although they might ask a lot of questions about a lot of things. They never worry that I'm doing the right thing for them, and that's always been, I think, the part that has been important for me, is that we are doing the best we can in this whole situation. Right down to um, how we travel out of the house, and if we go anywhere, things like that. So and that's been really, really important, is knowing that, I hope for my boys to know that they can trust me, and I'm going to do the best I can for them in this whole thing. And one last question for both of you. I am not telling anybody what they need to do in terms of getting a vaccine or not getting a vaccine, but I wanted to check in with you guys and find out, have you been vaccinated? Are you getting vaccinated?
Man, I got the first one. I'm waiting. Like, I'm like, where's the second one? Like, I'm ready to go. Um, I think, and John, to your last point, quick. I mean, that point you just hit around, like, your boys trusting you. As a father, and as men of color, that are fathers here, right? I think that's so critical, right? And I think to certain things, it was almost scary, right? Like, I feel like this pandemic weighed heavy on me, because my boys do trust me. I think I've earned that right for them to trust me, right? I've earned that spot. And when this whole pandemic kind of happened, right, you didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't have all the answers. You didn't know, you couldn't control all the elements of it. And so there were things that you didn't know, and maybe you couldn't prepare for. And your mind starts to go like, okay, what if one of us gets sick? Like, what happens then? Um, so I think in certain ways it's been very humbling as well. And trying to, and you try to think through, like, how can you best kind of set, your family up in case, anything ever happens or what have you. And so I think it's really triggered my mind to think about that. But and I know that's a little bit off the subject.
Oh,
The
no,
question.
no, but
No,
that's
it's great.
yeah,
It's
man.
great.
That's
But yeah, I mean, so it goes beyond just that, but, like, financially and all that, like, what do we do if something happens to me as a father? and kind of thinking through that, right? Which starts to open up a whole other can of worms. But I think that's what some of the pandemic made me think through. And so related to the vaccine, right? Like I've been one that I've been wanting to get vaccinated. Once the science kind of was proven out, and things were like, okay, things are checking out, right? It's not being rushed through the process. It's going through the proper procedures and all that. I just think it's one of the things that if we're truly about getting through this, and again, my wife's a nurse too, right? So she gives me her insights as well. Yeah, I mean, it's not something I hesitated to do. I was waiting to kind of get my opportunity to do it. Go ahead, Los.
Yeah, so for me, similar, you kind of mentioned earlier, when this pandemic came out and we started seeing the number of people dying and stuff like that, but also seeing the number of people of color and people like us, for whatever reason, this virus is hitting us harder and they're taking lives. My goal right off the bat as a family was we need to survive this and we got to be careful and be safe. I think that the countless friends that we have on Facebook who are health professionals, doctors, nurses who are educating us throughout the pandemic, letting us know, this is what's really happening and this is how to really protect yourself. But I was also following, the news and the science and trusting that because it was a worldwide pandemic, that the greatest minds in health, we're going to try to figure this out and try to save lives. So when the vaccine came out, I was still going to be, well, I want to see how it goes first for those, the first few folks. But 4 months in, I just got mine last week. And prior, to that, people would ask, are you going to get the vaccine? I'm like, grab whatever part you want in my arm, you could put it anywhere you want. Like, I just want to get vaccinated. I want to be able to go hug my mom, I want to be able to just hang out with my brothers again. So when that came by, I had no doubt that I was going to get it, and my wife is going to get it, just because we've been so isolated. And being Puerto Rican, being raised in a very close, tight family, that has been the most difficult, not being able to be close with my mom, my dad, my brothers, and hanging out as a family. So the vaccine for us was the opportunity for us to do that again. So we're one shot, me and my wife got our first shot. We're one shot away. And we're looking forward to that. Or, just spending time with my family and then hopefully my close friends. I know me and Javi kind of talked about, I'm like, yo, when this is done, we got to get together, get the kids together and stuff like that, because it's been a long year, and for a lot of us, we've never been this isolated. So once again, the vaccine to me was our opportunity to be able to get that little bit of normalcy back into our lives.
Yeah, that's, I'm actually almost 3 weeks out from my second shot now. So, which has been good. It's been, it's been like a breath of fresh air, although I can't really breathe the air other than what's in the mask. Cause I'm, but what I'm saying? So it's been good to like, and I had to, it took me a while to kind of get to the place where I wanted to go ahead and get vaccinated. But I did it because of my family. I did it because of my boys. I did it because, I felt like from a personal perspective, it would be far worse if I could have done something and didn't, and ended up getting sick and ended up leaving my family in a bad place, right? So I know that I at least am gonna make it to the next booster shot that I gotta take, right? So they talking about Pfizer gonna have to take another booster shot probably in 6 months or something like that. I'm like, you know what? That's cool. If I get the same symptoms I had the first time, I'm good. A little tired, You know, like I can handle that. But it's important. You know, it's important for to be able to be here for the family. It's important to be able to um, be able to spend as much time with them as I possibly can. And so the pandemic itself has not been that difficult for me because I am a loner by nature. Like I like to spend a lot of time by my. That's how I like. Although my job is to be around people, or has been to be around people, talking to people, you know what I'm saying, interviewing people. I enjoy my time. That's my time to re-energize. And so I've been able to re-energize a lot during this pandemic. So that's been interesting. Um, but I want to thank both of you for being here tonight. I really do appreciate it. This has been awesome. Carlos, thank you for coming back. And Javi, thanks for coming and being on the show. I know Carlos called you out and
called me out, man. Wow.
But I'm glad to have you here. You know, it's been great chatting with you, man. I know it's been some years since you and I have connected. I won't put it out there the last time me and you were together. Like it was in DC. That was years ago. I won't talk about that because I know there's some people watching this who don't.
He's already catching up to me, brother. Don't make it more. Nah, John, but big ups to you, man, for at least providing this type of platform. It's interesting because when I saw you kind of roll out with it, it was kind of funny because I always kind of think to myself, and it's funny because I'm a homebody too, right? But it's like, damn, like you're going through all this stuff as a dad, right? Because I sometimes I feel like folks forget that dad's a human, right? Like it's just like you just going through it, and it's just like, all right, and I think as men, right, you're kind of predispositioned to be like, nah, I'm good. I'll kind of work through it, but it's good to have a platform of brethren, right? Like to have a conversation, and even if it's informal, right, just to get some of it out, man, because it's a struggle, right? It's real. It's real in the field, right? And so it's good to know that there's others kind of in the fight, kind of trying to make the best out of whatever situation and make a living and provide for their families and make the right decisions for their family. So I don't know. I just take a little bit. It's a little bit of a peace of mind for me to know. And Carlos has always kind of been my extension, right? Like we not that we talk a lot, but we've connected. But to know that I have friends that went to college and are right there with me, even though we haven't seen each other in a couple of years, like it's good to know. And so don't hesitate to reach out, brother.
Yeah, man. Hey, look.
We're gonna have
to definitely do this again without a shadow of a doubt. I appreciate these moments. It gives me an opportunity to reconnect, to have conversations, to know that it's not just me.
Hey,
it's not just me. You know what I'm saying?
So true.
Like sometimes you just be like, is anybody else dealing with this? Like, has anybody else seen this?
Yeah.
Like, so it's great to be able to do this, and it came out of a place of just wanting to be able to have a forum like this, an opportunity like this. So, you know what I'm saying? If you have any ideas, I'm open. Matter of fact, I think this was your idea, Javi, to have this conversation. I appreciate that, man. And it is, if you know anybody else, you don't have to call them out on here, but if you know anybody else you want, they should be on the show,
my brother Angel Resto, my brother.
That's right.
So everyone's learning Carlos just likes to put people on blast.
Hey, join the party, join the movement. John's gonna blow up. You want to be part of this?
I just want to be able to keep offering this opportunity to chat, have these conversations. Next time, Carlos, you're gonna have to make it out, and Javi, you're gonna have to make it out for the happy hour. We did a happy hour a couple of weeks ago.
Nice.
It was just we were just chatting it up, you know what I'm saying? So thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate this. And You know, it's been great. This has been another episode of Daddy Confessions. Again, as I told these guys, if you know of any topics that you think we should talk about on the show, please send them to thedaddyconfessions@gmail.com. Or if you would like to be on the show, hit me up. We are on Instagram. We got a Facebook group going, and YouTube, and all your podcast options out there to listen to the show. So I say again, to the 4 people who listen to the podcast, thank you. And to that 5th person who might hear it soon, thank you in advance. And I want to say good night and thank you for listening to Daddy Confessions.